When Elon Musk watched a short video late one night in his office, he had no idea it would spark one of the most heartwarming moments of his life. The video showed a young boy named Leo, just 10 years old, selling his prized Tesla and SpaceX toys to help pay for chemotherapy. What Elon did next wasn't for the cameras or the headlines. It was pure, unexpected, and real. Because in true Elon Musk fashion, he turned a child's quiet act of courage into something that moved millions and reminded the world what it truly means to dream big, even in the face of pain. The hum of a small oxygen machine echoed softly through the bedroom, blending with the distant sound of laughter from a children's science show playing on the TV. In the center of the room, beneath a blanket patterned with rockets and stars, lay Leo, 10 years old, eyes wide and locked onto the glowing screen. Tubes lined his arms and his skin was pale, but his gaze held the kind of intensity usually reserved for astronauts staring down the surface of Mars. Leo wasn't just a fan of space, he lived it. His room was more like a mission control center than a kid's bedroom. Posters of SpaceX rockets, Martian landscapes, and a framed quote from Elon Musk hung proudly on the walls. When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. Next to his bed sat a meticulously organized shelf of Tesla model cars, mini Falcon 9 replicas, and a hand-built LEGO Starship he'd assembled during his last hospital stay. Each piece told a story, not just of a company or a CEO, but of a kid who dared to believe in something bigger than his diagnosis. Because while leukemia had taken a lot from Leo, energy, hair, time, it hadn't touched his imagination, and it never stood a chance against his hope. His mother, Angela, peeked into the room quietly, watching him with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. Leo didn't notice. He was too busy sketching a new rocket design on the back of a chemo appointment reminder. His fourth line swayed slightly as he leaned over the paper, adding solar panels and wings. To anyone else, it might have looked like a child playing pretend, but to Leo, it was planning. "Do you think Elon really wants to go to Mars?" he asked suddenly, not looking up. Angela smiled gently, brushing a tear from her cheek before it fell. "I think he does. Just like I think one day you'll build the rocket that gets him there." Leo grinned. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the medicine, not the beeping machines, just the stars. The house was quiet that evening, except for the low hum of the dishwasher and the soft crackling of bills being unfolded at the kitchen table. Leo was in his room, drifting off to sleep beneath his glowing moon lamp. But down the hall, his parents sat in silence, faces pale under the weight of a letter they had dreaded opening. Angela's hands trembled as she read the words aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "The next round of chemo, not covered." Her husband, Mark, stared at the page, numb. Numbers, codes, rejections. It all blurred together. "But we already paid everything we had." Angela's voice cracked, the sentence trailing off into quiet disbelief. They had sold the second car, cut back every expense. Friends had helped. Crowdfunding pages were shared, but it wasn't enough. And now the cost of keeping their son alive came with a price they couldn't afford. Unbeknownst to them, Leo wasn't fully asleep. The walls in the house were thin. He heard enough to understand. Later that night, when the house had gone still, Leo slipped out of bed. He walked to his shelf, barefoot and quiet, and ran his fingers over each of his treasures. The Tesla Roadster, the signed poster from a SpaceX engineer, the model of the Starship prototype he built with his dad. Each item held a piece of his dream. But now, they needed to be something more. He reached under his bed and pulled out a cardboard box, the same one he'd used when he first started collecting. Slowly, carefully, he began placing each item inside. His hands shook slightly, not from weakness, but from the gravity of letting go. By morning, the shelf was empty. When Angela came in to check on him, she found Leo awake, sitting beside the box. "I'm going to have a garage sale," he said, his voice soft but certain. "People like Elon, maybe someone will want this stuff." Angela's heart shattered. She knelt beside him, trying to speak, but nothing came out. Just tears. Leo didn't cry. He just looked up at her, tired but brave. "If it helps pay for chemo, it's worth it." She wrapped her arms around him tightly, wishing with all her strength that love alone could cure him. But for now, all they had was each other, and a cardboard box full of dreams. The morning sun crept over the rooftops as Leo dragged the cardboard box into the driveway. A hand-drawn sign taped to the mailbox fluttered in the breeze. It read, in crooked blue marker, "Garage sale, toys, models, dreams, all for a good cause." Angela stood nearby, watching him set up with quiet heartbreak. She had offered to help, to do it for him. But Leo insisted. "I need to," he'd said. "They were mine to begin with." One by one, he laid out his treasures on a foldable table. The miniature Falcon 9, paint-chipped but loved. The die-cast Tesla Roadster, red and worn at the wheels. His favorite, a signed rocket model from a SpaceX intern who once replied to one of his fan letters. Leo placed it front and center. A few neighbors wandered over, curious. At first, they saw a kid selling toys and offered casual smiles, but then they noticed the oxygen tank sitting quietly behind the table, the fourth bruises on his arms, the way his mom stood nearby trying to stay composed. "Are you Leo?" a woman asked gently, holding her daughter's hand. Leo nodded. "I'm selling these to help pay for my chemo." The woman's eyes welled up instantly. She knelt down, pulling a 20 from her purse. "I don't need change," she said, choosing a small plastic rocket. "This is going on our mantle." Word spread fast. Within the hour, the driveway was full. People came with cash, baked goods, handshakes, and hugs. Some just stood in silence, unsure of what to say. Leo greeted each of them with the same quiet strength. A man with a camera arrived mid-morning. Local news. He asked Leo if he could film. Leo looked up at his mom. Angela hesitated, then nodded. The segment was short, just a minute and a half. But it showed everything. Leo's gentle voice, his trembling hands as he sold the signed model rocket, his smile hiding pain no child should carry. The footage ended with Leo saying softly, "I just want to get better, and maybe build real rockets one day." By nightfall, the story aired on the evening news, and by morning, it would be everywhere. The clip hit local TV just after the weather report, a quiet story tucked between politics and sports. But something about it stuck. Within hours, someone posted the video to Twitter, then Facebook, then TikTok. The caption read, "This 10-year-old sold his prized SpaceX collection to pay for chemo. His name is Leo. His hero is Elon Musk. Let's make sure he gets seen." And the internet listened. Retweets poured in. Celebrities reposted it. Teachers shared it with students. Parents tagged other parents. The video, raw, quiet, real, struck a chord. There was no dramatic music, no fundraising ask, just a little boy handing over a rocket he loved more than anything. A stranger commented, "This broke me in half." Another, "Elon needs to see this." Someone sent it to SpaceX. And someone did. Inside the walls of SpaceX HQ, the clip landed in the inbox of a junior marketing assistant named Miguel. He watched it on his lunch break, halfway through a protein bar. By the end of the video, he wasn't hungry anymore. He forwarded it to his manager, who forwarded it to someone else, who forwarded it to Gwynne Shotwell, the president of SpaceX. By evening, the video had made its way to a secure inbox labeled EM-Direct. Elon Musk opened the file sometime around 2:14 a.m., the blue glow of his laptop reflecting in his glasses. The office was quiet. Most of the building was empty, But Elon was still at work, reviewing notes on a Mars propulsion test. He clicked play. No reaction at first, just silence. He watched Leo hand over his rocket, watched him smile through the pain, watched the quiet determination in his eyes. Then Elon leaned back in his chair, exhaled slowly, and said, "Just one thing. Find this kid." He didn't need to say more. The team around him knew exactly what that meant. The meeting had gone well past midnight. The windows of the conference room at SpaceX HQ reflected the dim lights of the control panels inside, the only glow cutting through the darkness of Hawthorne's sleeping skyline. Elon Musk sat at the head of the long glass table, surrounded by engineers and executives, most of them bleary-eyed, scribbling notes, reviewing launch metrics, debating fuel optimization for the next Starship test. But Elon wasn't focused on the numbers anymore. His phone buzzed quietly beside his laptop. A message from Gwynne Shotwell. No subject line, just a link and a sentence. "You need to see this." He clicked. The screen filled with the now viral clip. A small boy seated behind a table of worn space toys, smiling through tired eyes as he handed over a model rocket. A reporter's voice quietly narrating, "Leo, age 10, battling leukemia, selling his prized SpaceX collection to help pay for chemo." No dramatic soundtrack, just the sound of Leo's voice. "I just want to get better and maybe build real rockets one day." The room fell silent. Elon didn't move. For a moment, all the charts and data, all the deadlines and designs, faded behind the image of a child who still believed in the future, even when his own was uncertain. Elon leaned back slowly, his eyes still fixed on the screen. The last frame lingered. Leo waving to a neighbor, his arm wrapped in gauze, his smile unwavering. Then, without looking up, Elon spoke. His voice was quiet, measured, but final. "Find this kid." No further explanation. The team around him exchanged glances, half moved by the video, half stunned by the tone in Elon's voice. It wasn't an order for publicity. It wasn't a gesture for optics. It was personal. Because Elon knew what it meant to dream big when the world says you shouldn't. And here was a boy doing just that, with nothing but his imagination and a cardboard box full of dreams. And Elon Musk wasn't going to let that go unanswered. It was a quiet Thursday morning, the kind of morning where nothing unusual happens until it does. Leo sat by the front window, sketching yet another rocket design on the back of a cereal box. His fourth stand rolled quietly beside him, its wheels squeaking ever so slightly with each small shift in movement. Then he heard it, the gentle purr of a car engine, smooth and unmistakable. Out front, a sleek black Tesla Model X glided to a stop at the curb. The windows were tinted, the body spotless, gleaming in the morning sun. It looked like something out of one of Leo's drawings. Angela stepped outside cautiously, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The rear door opened, and out stepped a woman in a navy blazer, with a SpaceX badge clipped to her lapel. She had a warm smile and an envelope in her hand. "Hi," she said kindly, her tone soft. "I'm here for Leo." Angela blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The woman held out the envelope. "He's been invited to SpaceX, personally, by Mr. Musk himself." Angela slowly took the envelope, her fingers trembling. The paper was heavy, the kind used for formal occasions. She opened it, and inside was a handwritten note, not printed, not typed. It read, "Leo, I saw your video. You're braver than most astronauts I know. Come visit us at SpaceX. Bring your family. Everything's taken care of. Let's build some rockets. Elon." Tears welled in Angela's eyes. Leo, who had wandered to the door, stood silently beside her, reading the note over her shoulder. His mouth dropped open, and for the first time in weeks, his face lit up like a launch pad seconds before ignition. Is this real?" he asked, voice shaking. The SpaceX rep smiled. "Very real. We leave in 3 days. You better pack." Leo looked at his mom, then at the Tesla. He didn't say a word. He just smiled, wide, unfiltered, full of wonder. Because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just dreaming, he was going. The gates of SpaceX headquarters slid open with a soft mechanical whir, revealing a campus that looked less like an office and more like the future. Sleek glass buildings, towering rocket replicas, engineers walking briskly with tablets and purpose. Inside the arriving Tesla, Leo pressed his face to the window, his breath fogging the glass as he took it all in. Angela sat beside him, clutching his hand. Across from them, a SpaceX staff member smiled warmly. "Welcome to Mission Control, Commander Leo." Leo grinned. He hadn't smiled that wide in weeks. They were greeted at the entrance by a small team. No cameras, no press, just real engineers, excited to meet the boy whose story had touched their entire building. The tour began. First stop, the rocket lab. Leo stood in awe beneath the nose cone of a Falcon 9 booster, staring up like it was a monument. "That's the engine?" he asked, pointing. "Merlin 1D, an engineer said. "Want to see how it works?" Next, Mission Control. The room buzzed with quiet energy, real-time satellite data dancing across massive screens. Leo stepped inside and gasped. "Is this where the launches happen?" "Exactly," said their guide. "Want to sit in the command chair?" Leo practically sprinted to it, his fourth pole rolling behind him like a loyal rover. Last stop, the Tesla design studio. White walls, hushed voices, futuristic concepts sketched in real time on touch screens. Leo's jaw dropped as he touched one of the panels. "This is insane," he whispered. Angela held her phone at her side, recording quietly, not for the internet, but for memory. For Leo's future self, the one who would one day watch this and say, that was the moment it all began. As the tour came to an end, the guide looked at Leo with a curious smile. "There's one more stop," he said. "Someone wanted to meet you in person." Leo tilted his head. "Who?" But the guide didn't answer. Instead, he opened a nearby door. And everything changed. The room was quiet, empty at first glance, just a simple studio space with high ceilings, a whiteboard covered in scribbles, and a model of Mars spinning slowly in the corner. And then, a familiar figure stepped out from behind the board. Elon Musk. Leo froze. His breath caught in his chest. His eyes went wide. He'd seen this man on screens, in books, on posters above his bed, but never like this. "Hi, Leo," Elon said softly, a gentle smile forming. "I'm really glad you came." For a second, Leo couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You're real." Elon chuckled and knelt down to Leo's level. "So are you, and I've heard you've been building rockets longer than some of our interns." Leo laughed, a real, light-hearted laugh, and stepped forward. Elon offered his hand. They shook. And in that moment, it wasn't CEO and fan. It was visionary and dreamer, mentor and future builder. They talked, not about illness, not about pain, but about Mars, engines, solar power, why failure matters, and what bravery really means. "I don't feel very brave," Leo admitted. Elon tilted his head. "Selling what you love to help your family? Facing hospitals like launch pads? That's the definition of brave." Then Elon stood up and walked over to a table in the corner. On it was a sleek black box tied with a silver ribbon. "This is for you," Elon said. Leo opened it slowly. Inside was every single item he had sold. The signed rocket, the Roadster model, the LEGO Starship. All of it, returned, and more. A limited edition Tesla jacket stitched with his name, a signed Falcon 9 replica engraved with the words, "To Leo, never stop building." And beneath it all, an envelope. Leo opened it, his hands trembling. Inside was a document, a letter. On top it read, "SpaceX Future Builder Scholarship, full academic ride. Leo, last name. Leo looked up, eyes full of tears. Is this real? Elon nodded. Yeah, and when you're ready, we're saving a desk for you. Leo couldn't speak. He just threw his arms around Elon, burying his face in his chest. And the entire room, Angela, the staff, even Elon, stood still in that one quiet moment. A hug between a boy who dreamed of Mars and the man who was building the ship to get him there. The footage wasn't slick. There were no camera crews, no staged lighting, no dramatic soundtrack. It was shaky, handheld, taken by a SpaceX staffer who simply couldn't help but record the moment. Leo, in his oversized Tesla jacket, standing face to face with Elon Musk. The hug, the gasp, the tears, the moment a boy who once sold his rocket collection to survive got it all back, and then some. Tesla's official account posted the video with a caption as simple as it was profound. A boy with a dream, a meeting that changed everything. That was all it took. Within minutes, it spread like wildfire. Retweets, reposts, reels, shares. People around the world, parents, engineers, teachers, astronauts, even other children fighting their own battles, watched the hug, the emotion, the magic of it all, and felt something they hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Celebrities began chiming in. A-list actors shared it with broken heart emojis. Famous CEOs commented, offering donations, support, resources. Hashtags like #for Leo and #Dream Big Little Launcher trended worldwide. And then came the flood of donations, not just for Leo, but for children everywhere going through the same impossible battles. Cancer foundations, pediatric hospitals, family support organizations. Leo's GoFundMe, quietly started by a neighbor weeks ago, exploded overnight. The $50,000 goal surpassed in 2 hours, then $100,000, then $250,000, and still climbing. Angela sat in the kitchen the next morning, phone in hand, tears running freely down her face as the numbers rolled in. Mark just stood by the window, watching Leo in the backyard, building a cardboard rocket with chalk-covered fingers, blissfully unaware of the movement he'd just ignited. No one planned it. No PR team engineered it. No hashtags were paid for. It was just a boy, a hug, and the reminder that in a world that so often feels chaotic and cold, humanity still shows up when it matters most. The chemo was over. The scans were clear. Leo was in remission. There were still checkups, still doctors, still a lingering fear that sat like a shadow in the corner of every quiet moment. But for now, for today, Leo was healthy and alive and dreaming. He didn't stop talking about rockets. If anything, he spoke of them more. But now he talked about sharing that dream. With help from Elon's team, Leo launched something new, a nonprofit, a small foundation with a giant name, Little Launchers. Its mission was simple: help kids in hospitals, kids like Leo, stay connected to imagination, curiosity, and the belief that their future still existed. SpaceX engineers volunteered time. Tesla donated VR gear, books, models. Schools partnered up, hospitals signed on. Leo even visited some himself, walking the halls with a box of toy rockets and a smile that somehow made every sterile room feel a little warmer. He didn't do it for attention. He did it because he remembered what it was like to feel small, to feel forgotten, to feel like the stars were too far away. And now he was giving those stars back. On a cool spring evening, Elon invited Leo to a launch. Not a simulation, not a tour, a real one. They stood side by side on the viewing platform at Cape Canaveral, the rocket bathed in floodlights, standing tall and silent like a monument to everything they both believed in. Leo wore his now-worn Tesla jacket. Elon stood quietly beside him, hands in his pockets, eyes forward. "You nervous?" Elon asked. Leo shook his head, smiling, not even a little. The countdown began, but the 9, Angela and Mark, watched from behind, arms wrapped tight around each other. 3 dots. 2, 1. Ignition. The rocket roared to life, rising through the sky in a column of fire and light, cutting through the clouds like a dream that refused to be held back. Leo didn't cheer, he didn't jump. He just stood there, watching with wide eyes. Elon looked down at him and whispered, "You're going to build one of those someday." Leo didn't look away. I know. 2 dreamers, 1 launch, and a sky full of possibilities. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even more shocking.